The show is over, the lights are turned off, and somewhere in a secret hideout under a bunch of fancy meeting papers, Mark Carney is crying into his special earth-friendly tissue because, guys and girls, the voting castle he built with help from every climate person from big meetings to Toronto City has just been hit by the court wave of the decade. Yes, you heard that right. Government judge in Canada, a real person wearing robes, has just opened up the voting surprise box, and what came out wasn't just small mistakes or lost votes. No, this wasn't a tiny whoops. This was like finding out the Olympic ice skating judges were wearing team shirts under their robes. Let's paint the picture. Imagine at the 2025 government election, Pierre Poilievre going up in popularity like a fast train, crowds so big they needed traffic cops. People counting votes were shocked. The Liberals holding on to Justin Trudeau's memory like it's a floating thing on a sinking ship, then suddenly out of nowhere, poof, Mark Carney is said to be the winner, the banker, with the excitement of a math worksheet and the leading skills of a temperature control had somehow won. Before we keep going, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you like this stuff, please take a second to thumbs up this video and follow the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without following. It costs you nothing, but it helps us a lot. So did you click the follow button? Great. Thank you so much. Now back to the videos. Canadians looked confused. Wait, what? Him? It smelled weird. Not like ocean fish, more like something left outside on the Ottawa street for 3 days. And now we know the truth was even worse than we thought. Big court decision has just blown up the fake story court. Recounts have been started across the country, 11 voting areas and counting, but this isn't just some polite Canadian recheck. No, this is a total check of a voting process that has clearly broken down under the weight of Liberal pride and elections. Canada's mess-ups. Let's talk about those voting papers. Some were thrown out for having wrong zip codes, others missing as in gone, disappeared. Like Carney's believability in some areas, the vote differences were so small they make your allowance. Money looked big in Newfoundland's area. The difference between candidates was one vote. One, that's right. Someone basically sneezed during the counting and accidentally picked a government. Meanwhile, Carney, the not-elected world money whisperer turned Liberal savior, was supposed to fix things. Instead, he's running an election where voters are watching their voting system get beaten up like a candy-filled thing at a party for drunk math people. Let's go through the best parts of this voting paper. Burning party in Windsor area. Liberals celebrated thinking they'd won the deal with a 77-vote lead. Then came the recount surprise. The seat switched to the Conservatives by 4 votes. That's not a fix. That's a voting backflip off the high-jumping board in East Halton Hills. There was a sudden jump in Liberal votes during early voting. No people change, no more. People voting, just a mysterious Liberal bump that would make even fancy voting machines wonder. It was like finding out your piggy bank magically had an extra $100 right before your parents check your room. Then there's Vancouver South. The Liberals said they won by 56 votes, but apparently the number of voting papers didn't match the number of people who voted zombie voting. Papers, ghost voters. We're just 2 steps away from needing cartoon detectives to solve this mess. Meanwhile, in Halifax, voting papers from one area were put in another. Imagine mailing your lunch money to the wrong teacher and still expecting to eat lunch. Actually, scratch. That sounds like Carney's money policy in Quebec. A seat switched because of, wait for it, a zip code, not ideas, not popularity, a zip code. Welcome to voting in 2025, brought to you by a group of clipboard-holding office workers and Computer Valley kids on break and who is at the center of it all. Mark Spreadsheets Carney, the man who was supposed to save the Liberal Party from its Trudeau time problems, the tech guy, the banker, the expert, the man with zero elected experience, but unlimited access to every fancy meeting room from London to other fancy places. This is the guy who campaigned on being honest, orderly, and money smart. Turns out he can't even count voting papers in his own area without starting a court investigation in his Montreal seat. It's total chaos. Voting papers counted after legal time limits, early voting problems, mail issues, chain of keeping track questions. At this point, it's unclear if Elections Canada used voting boxes or just big plastic containers from the store. And the crazy part, some voting papers were turned in without voter ID or even official stamps. No stamp, no ID. But hey, if you wrote a vote on a napkin and taped it to a big animal, it probably got counted. Elections Canada is brushing it off like a typo office. Mistakes, they say, as if voting is just a bad spell check, as if a nation's future can be edited like a school paper. Meanwhile, Pierre Poilievre, the man who actually talks to real Canadians, is not holding back. If Carney can't even secure his own seat without problems, how can he be trusted to lead the country? A harsh burn and a fair one? Because right now, Carney is losing a war to basic math, while Pierre holds town meetings, meets with working people, and explains actual ideas. Mark Carney is avoiding press meetings like they're incoming flying things. Not a single full press meeting since this scandal began. The man who once demanded openness now talks only through boring press papers that read like they were written by a computer robot on a caffeine crash inside the Liberal machine. Total panic. Internal popularity checks have crashed faster than Carney's climate plan. Swing voters are leaving the party like rats on a melting ice block. Trudeau time. Workers are tattling like snitches, blaming Carney's close friends for messing up the entire response. And the Prime Minister's office, it's now basically an escape room. Lawmakers from areas under Recount are avoiding calls, avoiding press, and in some cases, avoiding court papers, all while Carney's office insists this is his normal everyday oversight, sure, and the big sinking ship was just a minor boat problem. Even long-time Liberal planners are whispering the unthinkable. This government might not last a year. At this rate, Canadians will be back at the voting boxes before their Halloween decorations come down. But let's not lose sight of the real story here. This was supposed to be the comeback, the Liberal good guy story after the scandals. The big company cover-ups, the fancy vacations, the face painting, and the charity explosion. This was their shot at starting over. But instead of rebooting, they hit self-destruct. And Carney, he's not leading a nation. He's babysitting a garbage fire. A man who spent decades tinkering with world money systems can't even handle a voting box. His time in charge has barely begun, and already the wheels are coming off. The electric bus, what we're seeing is not just a voting hiccup, it's a national wake-up call. The big organizations Canadians once trusted are being shown for what they are: too big, unclear, and in some cases totally broken. And leading that march into dysfunction is a man who was never elected, never earned his place, and now by the grace of court, Recounts, is watching his crown slip before it ever fit. This is what happens when fancy people replace responsibility. This is what happens when parties crown instead of choose. This is what happens when you swap big dreams for showing off and leadership for business buzzwords. Mark Carney didn't win. He was put in place, and now Canadians rightfully want the receipt. The real leader is clear. It's Pierre Poilievre, the guy who didn't need legacy media to prop him up, the guy who didn't run from questions, the guy who actually showed up to debate, to speak, to earn trust, while Carney was being sung to by fancy meeting consultants. Pierre was talking to truck drivers, small business owners, farmers, and young Canadians priced out of their futures. And now it's looking more and more like Pierre was right all along. So where do we go from here? Maybe back to the voting boxes, maybe to a big legal challenge, maybe even to a full voting system makeover. But one thing is certain: Canada cannot afford another day of Mark Carney's fake show of being good at his job. This isn't leadership, it's pretend play. It's time to clean house, recount the votes, rebuild trust, and most importantly, take back voting from the hands of people who can't be held responsible, who think running the government is a fancy party and voting papers are just background noise, because this isn't about left or right. This is about right and wrong. And Canadians finally are done being wronged. If you found value in this breakdown, don't just sit there getting mad. Hit that follow button. Share this video with someone who still thinks office mistakes are an okay excuse for national embarrassment. We're building a movement, one that won't be counted by office workers, but by the voices of Canadians who've had enough. The revolution won't be on TV, but it might just be recounted. See you in the next